Hello and welcome back to the Football Heritage podcast. I'm your host, Rui Abreu, and today I'm joined once again by Jonee.
Hiya, always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, mate. It's been far too long. Thanks very much for joining us. And we're delighted to be joined by the recently elected president of Paços de Ferreira. I hope I've not butchered that name. Rui Abreu. Rui, how are you doing? Thank you very much for joining us on the show. I can see you shaking your head there.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Rory. A special compliment to my big friend Jonee. And so that everyone understands how we say the club name in Portuguese is Futebol, Clube, Paços de Ferreira.
Paços de Ferreira. There we go. I think that was a little bit better. My
Portuguese much better.
That's good. Well, thank you very much for joining us anyway. And as that introduction alludes to, we're going to be talking about the entire history of Paços de Ferreira. Everything from the founding of the club to its origins, its roots, up to the present day, including the club culture and the history. But we're also going to be speaking with Rui about his experience going from a fan of the club to the current president, which is an incredibly unique story. It's not something that happens every day, if at all. And once again, special thanks to Jonee for making this episode happen and to Rui for spending your time to come on and chat with us. This is going to be a really, really interesting episode. And it's going to be great hearing about the club culture and the identity around Paços, both from an internal club perspective and as a fan's perspective as well. I think it's quite important that we look at that dynamic. So we're going to be talking about everything to do with the club today. It's going to be one of those ones where we dive right into what the club is, how the club looks culturally, but also what the identity of the club and the supporters is as well, in this really unique landscape that Portuguese football has, whereas we know locality isn't really a thing, and the big three in Porto, Benfica and Sporting really take precedence. Just before we kick things off, Jonee, you have been on the podcast once before. Why don't you remind our listeners a little bit about what you do and who you are and what your role is?
Well, I've started my writing career, if you can call that, about 7 months ago, 8-9 months. I have a book coming out in September. Looking forward to that as well. And I've been trying to get Rui in the podcast for a while now, because obviously having a close friend going from supporter to president of whatever it is, let alone a professional club, that's just insane. And I'm very proud of him. I make fun, but I am very proud of him. It's a joy. Obviously, we just chatted about it. It's been difficult, but that's Portuguese football, to be honest. It's always a struggle for everyone. So looking forward to this, to see what he has to say about his Paços.
I have to say as well, Jonee writes and releases a remarkable amount of content and articles for our website as well, so you should definitely go and check them out. We'll put a link to his author description in the show notes if you want to go and check out all the writings that he's done. Rui, your turn now. If you want to tell our listeners a little bit about you, your life as a fan, and importantly, your life as president as well.
Well, since a kid, I'm a fan of FC Paços. Here in Portugal, usually kids support one of the big three. I don't care about any of them. Porto, Benfica or Sporting, I don't care. My club has always been Paços. I always love the underdog story, and the story of Paços is a truly underdog story. I became very close to the club thanks to my grandfather, who get me to the games when I was a kid. My father used to be a referee on a low level, not even professional. So on Saturdays and Sundays, he was busy refereeing other teams, and I went to the stadium with my grandfather, and I became in love with Paços. Later, I was one of the guys that established the Ultras group of the club, and back in 2017, I've got invited to be the SLO of the club, Sporting Liaison Officer. For those who don't know what that is a person that establish communication between the board and the fans. So I get into the club by that door. When I was there, I saw the opportunity to become the marketing and communication manager, because that department wasn't very well developed in the club. So I took care of it. I think I did a good job, and I got the invitation to join another Portuguese side, Rio Ave FC, which is currently owned by Marinakis, the same guy from Nottingham Forest and Olympiacos. And I was there 7 months, and then there were some political storm here in Paços, and I was presented with a project, and I said, okay, it's the time to go. And in March 2025, I became the president of my childhood club.
It's incredible. It's an absolutely incredible story. I love that idea that you were presented with a project and you said, okay, now it's time to step in and save the day. And here you are now trying to save the day. But, as Jonee mentioned, and as we were talking about off air, it has been difficult, and these things are going to be difficult. Being the president of a football club, as much as many people say it's their dream job, and it may still be, like, it's not easy. You need to work hard. That's what people forget, is that it's not just sitting in a seat and watching all this money come into your wallet and signing off and signings. Like, it's hard work, and you need to work hard while you're there, especially if you're a club that is not within the top echelons of the nation in which you're managing. So we're going to jump into that a bit later on. I'm quite keen for us to go over the history of the club. First of all, obviously, being a fan and being so involved with the club, you'll be aware of it. A lot of our listeners might not be that aware of Paços, or at the very least, they'll maybe only know of them from seeing their names, for example, in European competitions, and they've had many European adventures through the years. But if I'm right in saying, I know that Paços adopted the name in the 1950s, but they can trace their roots back to the 1930s.
Well, the club, he was established in 1950. Back then, there were small clubs, small teams here in the town that were playing football. But the club was established in April of 1950. It was a group of scouts that decided to create the club. In the beginning, the club was called FC Vasco da Gama, not FC Paços de Ferreira. The name that we use today, we only established it in the 60s. And back in the days, we played in regional level. It was a very, very small club, stadium without stands. So basically a very small club. But then it came the 70s. In the 70s, Paços got promoted the first time for the National Division 3. In the first year, Paços became champion, and we've been promoted to second division. And since 1974, we never played lower than second division. Then in the 90s, the club got promoted for first division for the first time. We played 3 seasons in first division in the beginning of the 90s. But then we got relegated, and then we got back up again in the beginning of the 2000s. And the 2000s till today are the golden era of our club. Because not only we granted to play first division for several years, in total we have 24 seasons in first division, but also we clinched to achieve the Portuguese Cup final. We went to the Portuguese League Cup final. We finished in third place. That granted us qualification for the Champions League playoffs. We played 4 times in European competition, so we did quite well for a club that is very small. So you can understand, Paços de Ferreira is a city with 60,000 inhabitants, so it's a very, very small place. We don't have one of the biggest fan bases in Portugal, for sure. But we were growing slow and steady. And as we were a club that we didn't have that many issues with that, because we paid small wages, we didn't pay for transfers, so we didn't have like a huge debt like other clubs. And that's why in the early 2000s and 2010s, we get great results and we didn't have any issues of being in first division. But then it came this new phenomenon of investors in clubs. Portugal is dealing with it strongly right now. We have in 34 clubs in first and second division. There are only 3 that are not a PLC at the moment. So we faced a market where we are fighting against companies. We are not fighting against clubs, against associations. We are fighting against companies, some of them involved in a multi-club structure with billionaires and gazillionaires behind them. So it's becoming impossible for a club like ours to survive in the top tiers of the Portuguese football. We've been trying to. We avoided as much as we can to become a PLC too, but we will need to take that step. Otherwise, we will got relegation for third or fourth division. The fans will decide if they want to take that path or not. If the fans decide that they don't want the club to become a PLC and are okay as you can be with the relegation, that's the path we will take. If the fans want to keep the club in the professional football, we need to become a PLC and open the doors to an investor that help us bring back the glory days to our club.
It's good though that you're giving the fans a choice to be able to do that. I think that's really important. By the time this episode goes out, it will be a couple of weeks after we released the episode on Morecambe FC, and obviously at the time of recording we don't know what the outcome of Morecambe's decision is, but one rogue owner has effectively led the club to right now being 4 days away from extinction. And this is the type of thing that supporters all over the world are fighting against, the fact that the power that they hold within the football clubs is being taken out of their hands. So the fact that you're giving the fans some of that power to be able to do it is a good thing and ultimately a progressive thing. But, you know, you mentioned there the 1960s and 70s. I'd imagine that's when Jonee probably first went to Paços for the first time. Or at least got made aware of them. But, you know, Jonee, we've spoken a lot about this idea within Portuguese football that, you know, locality isn't a big thing. Obviously, we've spoken about it, but again, it's something that our listeners might not be aware of. So as a fan of the big three, can you explain to myself and to our listeners what that really means, that there's not a big culture of locality as there would be in, for example, England?
Well, just want to give a small hint here. The fact that Portugal it's been dealing this for several years, of course, make it harder to change the things. But hopefully, I see more and more fans from the small clubs assuming that they don't care about the big three, and this is something that is good. But we are light years away from what we have in Germany or England.
As a Porto fan, you're going to make me look bad in this episode. No, the thing is, obviously, I support one of the big three, so guilty as charged. But I've always been fully aware that we need the smaller clubs, with all due respect to all of them, for the football league to survive. Because if you look, like Rui was saying, Germany, even here in England and Scotland as well, but there's a culture around those clubs. It's not all about Bayern Munich or Liverpool or Man United, while in Portugal it really is about those big three, and they suck the oxygen out of everything, so it makes it very difficult for any other club to actually do something. Obviously nowadays we have the example with Braga, but they now have the backing from PSG, so that would be an interesting one to see what's going to happen from there. Portuguese football needs to be careful, because the way it stands, and it's not just Paços, and Rui will know this better than me, I would say probably 80% of the clubs in the top two leagues are struggling, and if they're not careful, within 6 to 8 months we might have a disaster, with several clubs just really struggling, because obviously I got friends connected with other clubs. No one else is a president like Rui, and they all complain about the same thing. Obviously with Rui, because at one point I think is it marketing director? I think he played that role, and I remember him saying, like, even a £2,000 budget, if you think about it, for the English clubs is nothing. He struggled to find that money, and he was doing really interesting things. Obviously he's going to talk about it, I'm sure, but it just makes you fully aware that the situation is not good. And you look at the clubs and you think, obviously at that point it's a top league club, surely they have money, and the reality is very far from that. It's a struggle for everything, and we all love football, and we all love to think it's just 11 guys running on the pitch chasing a ball, but without money, football it doesn't exist. It's a shame.
It is a shame. You're right, though, and I suppose, to use a loose comparison, you know, if I think about the Scottish League, think about my own league, like outside of Celtic and Rangers and probably Hibs, Hearts and Aberdeen, clubs are exactly the same. You know, Hibs just spent, I think it was £1 million on a player yesterday or the day before. They broke their transfer record. it's not something that really happens. And if you go lower down, your Ross Counties, your Motherwells, your St Johnstons, they're never going to be able to spend that kind of money. The money just isn't there. And like you said, though, Jonee, the marketing's an interesting side of things, and we are going to be touching on that a bit later on. We've touched on it in other podcasts, how, particularly of interest to me is how heritage is used in marketing and how that can be used to bring people a little bit closer to the clubs in that sense. But, still just on the subject of Paços, there's been some incredible players and incredible managers that have come through the club.
Well, Diogo Jota, which sadly passed away last week. Paulo Fonseca, the current manager of Jonee. Rui Vitória is now currently coaching Panathinaikos. Yeah, but there are several players that did a good story after their stay here in Paços. Paços used to be one of those safe places where coaches and players would love to go because they know that they would find a good environment, a family environment that would allow us to perform the best way they can. So they can find new and better opportunities for their career. That's why we had very young, talented Portuguese kids coming over, like Nelson Oliveira, David Simão. I can spend the whole morning here saying names that players that came to, I wouldn't say top level like Diogo Jota, but to a very decent level. And yeah, we over the years we were used to these kind of players, these kind of kids that were hungry for more, and they see Paços as a launch platform for their career. Nowadays, what happened is that, and this is something that I'm feeling right now that I'm present, because you're going to talk with a kid that just finished the under-19 season, kids that never played professionally, and you want to sign them, give them an opportunity, and they come asking salaries like big pros, like established names in second division. I was like, who the hell are you, man? You're just a kid. You just came out of your training or your training formation. So why do you want so many money? And this is because football is now an industry, and football is now being taken care by agents, taken care by investors, and it's important that they score goals. It's important that they perform, but I kind of think that it's not becoming the most important thing, because sometimes you see that it's important that the player X go to the club Z so they can sell it to the club Y next season for a certain amount of fee, and it doesn't even matter if he plays or not. As long as he played in that competition, in that club, they can show to whoever they want to show that, look, this guy played here, so he's very good, and they send it to these secondary markets and they get money out of it. And this is something that makes me sad, because I'm a supporter. I used to look at the romantic side of football, looking at the guys getting on the field, giving everything for the badge that they have in the chest. I'm not saying that you currently can't find that, but it's getting harder and harder. And at the end of the day, it's becoming just business.
But it's good that you're providing that safe space for players to come if they've been, for example, rejected from an academy or released from their contract when they're quite young. They can go there, they can continue their development, they can maybe even play for the club. So it's good that they maybe see Paços as a bit of a safety net, and as you said, yes, it can be a stepping stone, but ultimately this is what creates a club community and a club culture, is putting these things in place to actually benefit players who are coming through. Even better if it's local players and local kids that are coming to develop with the club as well. And of course, the club has had quite a few European journeys over the years, and until one game in particular, they had, if I'm right in saying, until this one particular game, they only had one other home win in Europe until Tottenham Hotspur came, and then they managed to grab their second home win, which is just absolutely incredible given the perceived difference in levels between the two clubs.
Yeah, actually, in Paços, we only played one season European football in our stadium, because the first 3 times that we got qualification for Champions League, we played in Boa Vista, Guimarães, and FC Porto Stadium, because our stadium didn't meet UEFA criteria for us to play there. So the last time we went, it was It was really our first European feeling in our stadium. We first received Larm FC from Northern Ireland, great guys. Shout out to them. I really love those guys. And later we got Tottenham Hotspurs, and yeah, it was an unbelievable night to win. I know that Tottenham fans will say, yeah, but we came with the reserve squad. I don't care. It was Tottenham on the so it was also fun to watch Paços back in England against Spurs. Although we lost 3-0, it was an amazing feeling to watch.
Of course, the club did compete in the Europa League group stages as well. If memory serves, that was 2013, maybe 2014, around then. I remember it because I was at university at the time, and that was the first time I'd really come across the club. So, they have been in and around Europe to some degree, obviously not recently, just because of how things at the club have been, but those are obviously the nights that supporters live for. It gives you great memories, fantastic moments. I mean, not every club can say that beating Spurs on their home turf,
It was. We're saying that we're talking here like it was a long time ago, but it was only 4 years ago. So, we had back in 2013. We played against Zenit, St. Petersburg for the Champions League playoffs. We played in the UEFA League against Fiorentina, Dnipro, and Panduri from Romania. Yeah, it was a fun ride, but we are a very small club, and we couldn't even compete with those teams. Although it's great to tell to my daughter and to my grandkids one day that I saw my team beat Tottenham.
It's amazing. Yeah, I love that. Those are the types of things that you live for as a supporter. What I'm most interested about, I suppose, that's obviously the club is really interesting to me. As a Portuguese club, and we can talk so much about the history and going through all the years and the different types of things that have happened, but what's most interesting to me as someone who's interested in heritage is the identity of the club, because every single club has their own unique identity. Every single set of supporters has their own unique identity. These identities are all anchored within the roots and the origins of the club. So being a supporter, and as we'll come on to now being president, what is the identity of Paços and the supporters?
I think the one thing that always stood up here is that sense of ownership and family, Everyone here sees Paços as something of their own, and they see the next fan as a brother or an uncle or something like that. Paços has been this small club. We know we are small. We know where we are. We know where we stand. But we always love the idea that we have a club that represents us. Paços is a very small town known for its furniture industry. We are known in Portugal as the capital of furniture. And we try to embrace that spirit into our club. The people that work with furniture, we are talking about very humble persons, very dedicated, hardworking. That's the spirit that we brought to the club. We always wanted the fans and everyone that comes here to feel welcome. And yeah, that's basically how we see and how we feel Paços. And this is the reason why it took us so long to even consider opening club to some outsider. This is one of the reasons that it took us so long. Time will tell if we did it good or not to delay as much as possible this change in the management style of the club. Time will tell.
Time will tell. And Jonee, is a supporter of one of the clubs from the big three, how does the culture of a club like Paços differ from the culture of, say, Porto or Benfica?
Well, obviously the resources available to someone that manages a club like Porto or Benfica and then Paços is a big difference. The one thing that always caught my attention with Paços, and I've had this discussion with Rui, is the fact that under 21 international players or under 19, they always seem to find a home there. There's always very interesting young players doing their thing at Paços, even if everyone is kind of aware that it's a stepping stone, that they're probably doing it to get somewhere else, but still. And Paços has always had many young players over there, really interesting ones that then would play for other clubs. And growing up, especially in the 90s, so they've always had really interesting players like Everaldo. I'll die with that player in my mind for whatever reason. The thing is, I think certain small clubs, again, with respect, opt to be defensive all the time. That's just the way they do things. And Paços has always gone the other way. They've always played attacking football. So, although I'm not a Paços fan, I like attacking football. And they've always tried their best to do it. Even if they didn't have household names, there was always that objective of just going forward. 4-3-3, there was always wingers just up and down the floor, and it was wonderful to see. I remember the first time I went to see Paços de Ferreira, it was with my dad. I can't remember who it was because he wasn't against Porto. It was just wonderful to see because they really went for it. They've always managed to do that. Now, maybe it's a cultural thing with the club because it's under 21s international players, so they do have that skill, so they can play that style of game. But Paços has always been interesting. And then if you're growing up, young kid, you're 10, 12. So you're looking at their yellow and green shirts and playing attacking football. You're thinking, this is almost like watching Brazil.
I like it.
This is it was just wonderful to see because I think all of us, we all have our main club and then we'll have like random clubs that you like. I like them for whatever reason. And with Paços, even before I knew Rui, it was always one of those, it's like, they go for it. How can you not like it? So it was just interesting to see because there was always an intent to play the game the right way. So growing up, it just stuck with me, and then obviously I met him and Luis. I don't want to go past the podcast without mentioning him as well. It was just great, and then obviously because we became such good friends, I had even more reasons to follow Paços. Obviously now I live in the UK, but I still, if I can, I'll find a way of watching the games. It's not always easy because the second division in Portugal is not always easy to find, but I'll do my best.
Yeah, that's brilliant though. I love that in terms of the style of play and how it's like quite attractive to young kids. I love the Brazil comparison. That's amazing. I suppose what I was getting at, and you kind of see this with a number of clubs in Scotland, probably I'd say below championship level, so going tier 3 and below, is that, you know, obviously you're a Porto fan, I'm a Celtic fan, everyone knows who we are and everyone knows what our club's identities and heritages are. But for the more local clubs, do you think that because there's lack of locality in Portugal, it makes the heritage of smaller clubs even more important because the people feel more attached to it? Whereas we've spoken about this before, being with the bigger clubs, we'll always love our football clubs, but let's not beat around the bush. We're big clubs, we're commercialised, and sometimes that can lead to a little bit of disconnect. So do you guys feel that the heritage of the smaller clubs is a lot more important and actually having that connect with the fans and making sure that instead of casting the net wide, you've got a really, really strong, loyal core of fans who know everything about the club and what it's about and just live and breathe everything that Paços is?
This was something that guided my work while I was the marketing manager of the club. I used to say that, okay, we know that no one cares about Paços. That's the reality. Everyone in Portugal only care about Porto, Benfica and Sporting. Let's be okay with that. What we need to do is we need to make people want to see what we are doing, what we can do. And this was the strategy that I used in the marketing. We start making viral content on social media. We start doing some content on social media that would make people from other clubs look at us. I used to play American football, so I drank a lot from what is done in the NFL. And one of the things that I really loved was the way they present the schedule for the teams. And I said, well, this is how we are going to make everyone look at us. So we start doing the schedule of our club, making fun of other clubs, you know. So everyone wanted to see what we were doing, how we communicate in a different way. Because here the clubs, they always communicate like very formal, very inside the box. So we became disruptive. We opened a little bit the Pandora box here in Portugal. Now there are more clubs doing that, but we were the first ones to do it. At first it was scary to, okay, let's go this way and see how people react, because when you make fun of Porto, Benfica and Sporting, usually the backlash is huge. But surprisingly, everyone loved it, and we became the example to follow in Portugal. And this was the first thing that we did to say, hey, we are here, we exist, look at us. Secondly, we embrace what we are. The jersey that Jonee showed you before, the black one, that shirt, you take off Paços badge and you put any other badge on that shirt, it makes zero sense, because that jersey was designed with things from our city, it's our culture. That shirt is all, it breathes Paços everywhere, you know. So it doesn't make any sense to have any other badge on that shirt. And this is something that I set as a strategy, because of course everyone wants us to wear Adidas, Nike, Puma, whatever. But I said, no, I don't want to go with those guys, because they don't allow me to do this on my shirt. I don't want to have the same shirt as IS Roma, but with just taking my badge and putting theirs. So this makes no sense for us. This was an important step for us, because not only we started to get the attention of other fans, because we did like, I'm a suspect of saying this because I designed the shirt, but you did something beautiful that everyone is looking into it. But more important for our fans is something that, hey, this is ours. This jersey is ours. It's our club. It's our identity. It's our history. So this is the way we wanted to work, and this is the way we came across the big problem that you have in Portugal, that radio, television, and websites, they only speak about 3 clubs, and suddenly we start to have our 15 seconds of fame outside those 3, and I think it was, for me personally, the biggest achievement I got while being the marketing manager of the club.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best quotes that we've had on this podcast so far. If you take the badge off that jersey, it doesn't make sense. I think that can be applied to so many different instances of, you know, clubs doing things a little bit different with their jerseys, and you know, there's some really, really out there examples, but see, when a club absolutely nails like a third kit and they've got all these different sort of heritage and history elements behind it, it really, really works. And it's this idea that if you take away the badge, if you take away the name, the crest, and everything that this football club stands for, you take that away from the design, it doesn't make sense. It makes zero sense out of context to anyone, including people from Paços. You need the badge there for the full story to be told. And I think that is heritage. That is what heritage is. That's how you interpret it, and that's how you get people to connect with your football club and what you're saying. I think that's an absolutely incredible example, Rui. And it must be a massive piece of pride knowing that you have designed something like that as well. I mean, knowing from speaking with some of our friends at the Deep Creative, they've designed a couple of kits themselves, and hearing the work that goes into, you know, there was one specific kit in Wales. The kit and the designs that were used in the kit was taken from a, you know, kind of folktale from the town, which was set in the year 1307. So everything down to the time they put the post on social media, they made it 1307, so 7 minutes past 1, to make sure all this went out. It's just these incredible things that go into marketing and that go into getting people attached to the football club, which really love and which you can really connect to heritage. One thing that I wanted to ask, and obviously that this is to try and find out a little bit more, because we're digging into some really good stuff here based on, well, your time supporting the club as well. Obviously, you grew up with them, but if you're trying to bring someone new into the club, why should someone support Paços?
That's a hard question, because nothing would convince me to support any other club. So for me, it's hard, because if you're not from around here, it will be just one more club. I think the story that Jonee told about that he met me and we became friends, and now the way I share my passion about my club with him, he kind of becomes, I wouldn't say hardcore fan, but becomes a person that would care about the club. I think it's a little bit like this, because at the end of the day, there's nothing different from FC Paços to Motherwell in Scotland. It's the same. It's something that you connect with, sometimes with no reason whatsoever. For example, I follow Chums from England. They play in National League. I don't know even the. I think it's sixth or seventh division in England. Why? Because every time I started a save on Football Manager, I start with them. There's nothing that connects me to them besides that, you know. But here, we were born here. We love the club here. I think it's the persons that are around the club and work with the club and support the club that make this club special and different.
That's really interesting, actually, and it's important as well. Though there's it's always weird. Always saying this show, you never want to look too much into what happens in social media because it's just a complete torrent of information all the time, and you get caught up in the opinions, even though there's only very small amount of people that are actually seeing them, and none of it really matters. But there's so many people that say, every single football supporter should support the club that's closest to them. And it's quite a romantic way of viewing things, but at the end of the day, it's bullshit. It is bullshit. People support football teams for different reasons, whether that's because they've started to save with them on Football Manager, whether it's because one of their friends that they've just met supports the club, whether it's because their grandfather supported the club but had to move elsewhere. There's a whole number of different reasons why people don't support the local teams. But what I do think is true is that people, regardless of the team they support, do have some affiliation to whoever their local team is, because that local team is probably so involved in the community and so present within their lives growing up that they have an attachment to them. That's what football clubs are supposed to do. They're supposed to be presences within their communities to help people grow up, help them through their formative years. That's ultimately part of their role as well, and it's a massive part. So, there's different reasons why people support different clubs, but I think what I like the most is that you know what Paços is and you know where Paços are, so you target the fans who will know about the club and the history, as opposed to necessarily directly trying to get new people to join the club or to come and see the club. You do it in a kind of passive way that's almost, oh, look, we know what we are, we're leaning into it. If you want to come and see us, you can come and see us. It's almost like presenting them a challenge, and I think it's quite interesting.
No, the thing is, sometimes you get fun, you get in love with the club because they represent something bigger than football. Let's say, for example, somebody from Germany or even Forest Green Rovers in England, they represent much more than a football club. Here in Paços, we are a traditional football club, and what we did to get attention and to embrace what is our culture and to embrace what we are and the way people here live, I think it has the charm to connect fans from other clubs to us, Of course, you can say from the marketing point of view, okay, you have to connect new fans and you have to make them feel special to come here. We do that a lot, but not in a way that we are hardly trying to get new fans. Let's say that you do some campaign, some specific campaign, and a season ticket that is cheap, and people that are close by, okay, it's cheap, let's go there, let's watch the game. But if they don't get in love with what we do and what we represent, the next month, next season, I don't care about this. Because Paços is not a winning club, Probably you guys became fan of Celtic or FC Porto because during your childhood, you saw them winning a lot of times. And usually, if it's not the family, that's the key factor for someone to become a fan of a club, because they win. The human being wants to be with the ones that win. That's something natural from us, The weirdos like us that like to suffer and never raise a trophy, we support the small clubs. That's the kind of humans that we are, and that's okay. We are okay with that, because at the end of the day, a win against FC Porto is a great day, it's a great week, it's a great month. But for an FC Porto to get a defeat against a club like Paços, it's 1 day or two sad, but then it's okay. They play for Champions League, they win the game, and they don't even care that they lost against Paços. So it's a little bit like this. I don't know if Jonee agrees, but
I was saying I take all losses the same way. Absolutely terrible.
No, but what I'm telling is that a victory against Porto, I still remember the ones that we had, but I doubt that you remember the losses that we had against Paços.
It was a nightmare to play at Paços because your pitch was smaller than, the usual. So every time we went to play there, it felt like the players didn't know where to go. I remember that vividly because you could tell, obviously the pitch was, I think it was Paços and Gil Vicente, I think, that the pitches were a bit smaller. Especially probably late 90s.
Well, it's not smaller because they met the standards. The issue is that the stands are on top of the sideline.
It was.
Players didn't want to go to the sideline to fight for a ball because they would end up beating with a head in the stands. That was an advantage for us because now our stadium is more comfortable for the players. The stands are a little bit far away from the sideline, and now they can go and fight players. I should bring back the stands close to the.
Well, guess
make it small, make it cramped. Brilliant. I mean, this is maybe the part where you're allowed to take your president's hat off for a bit. Feel free to say what you would like. What was it like being a supporter of the club growing up? Obviously, I mean, you still are a supporter. We shouldn't ignore the fact that you still are a fan despite being the president. But, you know, being a fan and growing up, watching the club, going to home and away games, being a massive part of your life. What was it like growing up and following Paços?
Fortunately, what Paços gave me is a bunch of stories and a bunch of great moments. Also some bad moments too, but that's part of it. But I was fortunate to start following the club in its golden era, you know, because most of my life I saw Paços in first division. I saw Paços playing the European competitions. So for me, it has been amazing. But I would say that every small victory for us, it's important. When I was telling that for us, some moments are stuck in our heads, and if you live pretty much the same thing in your clubs, you wouldn't remember so vividly like I do. Is, for example, when we clinched the qualification for the Portuguese Cup final. This was in 2009. The semi-finals were played in 2 legs. And in the first leg, we played at home with the Nacional da Madeira. At that time, they have this amazing team. Jonee, you remember Nene in front, you know, this amazing player.
Is he still playing? Because he played last season, didn't he?
Yeah, he's still playing AVS. They were like one of the top teams in that season. I think they finished in 5th that season. I'm not 100% sure. But they were, beside the big three, they were for sure one of the top teams in that season. And they came here in the first leg and we draw 2-2. And everyone here was, okay, it's done because they will hammer us in their home. And they play in Madeira Island. Okay, it's not close from here. And back then I was studying in Bragança, which is a little bit far from where I live, Paços. And it was a funny journey because I woke up in a Tuesday morning in Bragança. I made this college exam. I spent the whole night studying. I did the exam, took a bus, went to Porto. From Porto, I took a train to Lisbon. In Lisbon, I got a flight to Madeira. It's Wednesday now. I got drunk as hell during the day. I went to the match. Everyone was drunk and didn't pay any attention to the game because we're like, okay, it's national at home. They will beat us. But at 10 minutes or so, we were winning 2-0. And we got even more drunker with the goals. And it was absolutely menace. They ended up drawing the game. But I think it was the 89th minute. We got a penalty for us. We won 3-2, got the qualification for Portuguese Cup final, and I only went to bed on Friday night. So I woke up from Monday to Friday just to watch this game, and it was an absolutely incredible week.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you do it. Those are the football stories that everyone loves telling. That's absolutely amazing. I can imagine the atmosphere in the stands would have been absolutely unreal that night, man.
Yeah. We were only 12 Paços supporters because it's like I said, the game was during the week, so
sure.
People here work, and it was in Madeira Island, so you have to take the plane. And like I said, when you draw at home 2-2, everyone thought, okay, it's done. We don't have a chance against them back in Chopin, which is their stadium. But I said, well, doesn't matter. I go there, I drink beer and watch Paços. Is all good, but it was better than playing.
Incredible. Absolutely love that. And I guess at that point, you probably didn't have any ambitions to, well, listen, I don't know, maybe you did have ambitions to become president at that point. Maybe you were sowing the seeds at that point to try and establish yourself.
When I was a kid, everyone wants to become a football player or a manager. I always wanted to become president of FC Paços, not any other club, just Paços. But to be honest with you, I'm 39 years old now. I was assuming that I would get that chance when I was 55, 60, something like that. But yeah, it came to. But to be honest with you, at that time, back in 2009, I wasn't thinking that now in 2025 I would be the president, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's incredible. And obviously from what you've told us so far, the stories, but also your ideas around how heritage should be used within clubs and within marketing especially, I find really interesting. So what are your plans to take the club forward? Obviously, Paços haven't been in the best of condition recently, narrowly avoided relegation, as we touched on earlier in the episode, very, very narrowly. So what are your plans to take the club forward? And obviously everyone's kind of quick to say, what are you going to do to bring the club out of this mess? But it's not, you can't do that overnight. It's a long process. And if you want sustainability, then you need to have a long-term plan.
Like I told you before I became a president, I was at other club at Rio. But when I left the club, I had an idea of how poor our financial conditions were. Like Jonee said, when you try to get 2,000 or 3,000 euros to do something in the marketing and you can't have it, you understand how in a bad situation you are. So I really understood that we were in a very poor financial position, and I came up with a project that I know, I wouldn't say the majority, but most of the fans in Paços don't like, which is the idea of selling the club, having an investor. But I see it because I worked inside Paços, of course, but I also worked inside other club that is already run by an investor. And I understood that we have zero chance. Zero chance is a bold. I would say it's very hard for us to keep playing at a professional level when you don't have this sort of investment. So you understand the salaries here in Paços. We don't spend 2 million euros per season in salaries, okay? We spend less than 2 million euros per season. So you understand, I would say 70% of the clubs in second division have at least 50% more budget for salaries than what we do. I'm not saying that we were the low one, but if not the lowest, the second lowest one in second division for sure. And we are one of the most traditional clubs in Portugal. Like I said, we played several years in first division. And what you see now is that very small clubs with no fan base that came out of nowhere, they can spend lots of money with salaries. This is something that is jeopardizing what we are doing here because you can't attract talent. I was speaking with a player to sign with him for us, and a third division club offering the double that we offered. So it's absolutely insane. I'm not saying that giving more money to the players is the solution. I understand them. If they get a team that pays them 10, why they should accept 5? And yeah, this is why I think we need to take a step to a new business model. We need to rethink the way the club is organized. We need to rethink the way the club is run, because at the end of the day, we can have luck and we can have a good scouting department and find decent players, cheap players, and we even get promotion to first division. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's very, 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 very hard. We are looking now for a left back, and I can tell you that we are now in our 10th option to sign, because every single one of them is failing due to the incapacity that we have to offer a decent, I wouldn't say decent, but a big salary like they get in other clubs.
Okay, I think, that makes sense. The thing is, and it's understandable why, given how badly things can go, but having an investor isn't necessarily a bad thing. It can go well. It can be a good thing, but it's a balancing act.
The problem here is in Portugal, and Jonee knows, we have several historic clubs that got absolutely destroyed by these investors that has zero connection to the club. Clubs like Beira-Mar, Salgueiros, Setúbal, now Boa Vista with Gerard Lopes. These huge clubs, big important clubs in Portugal, got destroyed by these saviors that everyone told that they are coming to save the club and put the club playing in UEFA competitions again. This is very hard for our fans because it's okay for them to think, what if we are the next ones? What if there comes a guy that, oh no, we will do everything, the club will grow and blah, 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 blah. And then at the end of the day, you got relegation for the regional competition. This is something that I understand that the fans think this way. Myself, I thought it the same way not long back ago, but I think we need to take the risk. And what I did in the past few months, I've been talking with several investors, people from all over the world, and we came up with a project. Of course, I can't guarantee 100% that will go well, but as we are talking, I think it's the best project and the one that gives us better chances to not only succeed, but keep the identity club as closest as possible to what we are today. For me, it's hard to see when you see what's happening in clubs like, for example, Manchester United, what happened there, how the fans don't feel represented, how they feel that their club was stolen from them. This is something that we are working not to have here in Paços de Ferreira. That has been my main focus. Of course, time will tell if the option that I'm presenting to the fans is the right or not. We'll have to wait and see.
Exactly. It can be a huge balancing act trying to juggle bringing investment in, but also kind of maintaining the club's heritage and history and keeping all those things that you've put in place through the marketing to respect that heritage and history. Because normally when people hear of new investment coming in, those things don't really go hand in hand normally, and you want to try and maintain that.
That's the pain, and this will be something that I don't think the majority of the fans will understand. I think the majority, even those who will vote in favor of selling the club, they will keep in their minds like, am I doing right? Is this the right way to go? It's one of those situations that I would prefer not to do. I would prefer not to advance, but like I said, and now I'm sitting in the chair that's taking the decisions. If we want to keep Paços playing at a professional level, we need to take this path.
Yeah, you need to be bold with it, and you need to be sure and choose with conviction, I think, is what's important as well. Obviously, you go through a due process, but there needs to be conviction there as well. And Jonee, just quickly before we start to wrap things up, coming back to the heritage side of things, are there many other clubs in Portugal that are doing these types of things that Paços do? Because there's very few in the world of football, to be completely honest. I mean, there's obviously clubs with incredibly loyal and strong and unique fan bases with unique cultures, but there's not many football clubs that actually know how to use that in a proper way that's beneficial for both club and supporter. It's a very difficult thing to do.
More and more clubs are selling their souls just to keep the house running, to be honest. Going back to Rui was talking about when he was marketing director, I remember sharing on social media the fixture announcements, because obviously Paços, their main figure is a beaver. And it was just, that thing was amazing because I had friends from all over. I'll be honest, most of them probably didn't know the club, but they were like, this is genius. Like, why isn't my club doing this? Obviously, I don't know the answer because I'm not in there, but it was fantastic to see. And it was even me, because obviously I know Rui. I was always like, I want more. Like, can we get more of this for something else? No matter what it was. You can only hope that more clubs would openly embrace the heritage and the culture and the roots, and a lot of them just don't. It's very odd because we have clubs with centuries almost, like, because we have clubs with 120 years old, and they do nothing about it. to embrace that side. I'm pretty sure a lot of fans, especially the ones that are local, would react really well to it. And I think it's something that more clubs need to start working on. And in terms of Portuguese teams, because the money just isn't there. It's like my Porto just will sign a player for £15 million, and it's a big signing for Porto. And at the same time, a League One club here in England would easily pay that money as well. So the clubs need to come up with ingenious ways. They need to be more creative. It's not just Portuguese football, but obviously in this case, because that's where Paços is, they need to come up with ideas. I don't know where. Obviously, because Rui likes NFL and American teams, we might not be a fan or whatever, but American teams are very good at selling their things. So it might be something that clubs here in Europe, especially in Portugal, need to look at, because there's got to be other ways of finding new markets, especially now with football shirts. It's a big craze. Everyone is collecting them. Everyone has a bunch of them at home. And I think like a club like Paços and others, if they come up with another shirt like that, there might be a way of making money out of it. Look, it's sad to say that money is important, especially in something that we love so much, but it is. Like, Rui needs a left back, the money needs to come from somewhere. Otherwise, I'm going to be playing left back for Paços.
Yeah, the kits is a really interesting one. I mean, obviously, the best example is Bohemians in Dublin. I know that they get a lot of flack from supporters in the League of Ireland because they seem to bring out a kit every other month, but the kits are all tied to their club culture, whether it's for music, whether it's for a social cause or a geopolitical cause or something that's tied to their club culture. It makes fans feel good, but it also brings them in a lot of money. And it's very clever considering the club nearly went out of business not even a decade ago. But then you look at, go to Celtic again, it's like, well, they'll release a heritage kit through Adidas every year. It's like, oh great, another kit with the Irish tricolour on it. What does that mean? Everyone in the world knows that Celtic came from people who came from Ireland. That's not new information. What you're doing there is a cash grab. That's not heritage. You're using heritage as a way to get money into the club. Whereas other clubs might use it differently. Crawley, I think, are planning to release a third kit with a crow on it because the Crawley name in Old Anglo-Saxon English means something like where the crows meet. That's what heritage is. That gives it a bit more meaning. That's something that ties the people to the place and to the football club. And that's how you use heritage within football kits especially. So you're right, Jonee, it is really important, but there's always that balance between it being a cash grab and commercialisation and it being something that actually means something to the supporters. But, we've spoken about that quite a lot and how it's romantic of me to think that we could do anything otherwise. Rui's mentioned football as a business and unfortunately that is how we need to view it.
The thing is, even the big three clubs in Portugal don't really do much with heritage, because you look at, in my case, Porto shirts, it's just recycling the same concepts year after year. Now, I understand the main kit, leave it as is, because those are the club colours. I can understand why you don't want to mess about with that. But if you have a second kit, in Porto's case, they have a third kit, I don't know why, just make something with it, because you could, even just looking at the Porto city, not the club, there's so much they could do. There's so many things, like with the tiles, with the river. I wouldn't advise advertising Porto wine in a football shirt, but still, there's so many avenues that you can explore, and the Portuguese teams just don't do it. They just look at the shirts and this is going to be the way it is, the way it's always has been, and it just makes no sense, because you probably have about 2 million Portuguese living abroad, probably more than that. I don't know the exact numbers, it's probably more than that. And I'm thinking, if you come up with shirts that appeal to the heritage, that appeal to your memory, and you be like, I want that one, even if I don't really follow the team anymore, and that happens because the distance is complicated, people will be interested.
Sometimes when you try to bring those things in the big clubs, they ended up in a dark alley. You see what happened with the second and third kit from Sporting this season. So they announced it as a homage to the Calçada Portuguesa. Fribourg has the same homage because the jersey is the same from. And it's hard because when you are attached to a brand like Adidas or to Nike or Puma, or you are one of the biggest clubs in the world and you can convince them to try to do something different. But at the end of the day, you can't. You see, the jersey from Boca Juniors and from Real Madrid it's the same template, same cuts, everything. They just change the colors, and this is not the way you transmit your identity through a premium piece for the club merchandising, like the jersey, So you need to work with brands that allows you to do that. I thought when Porto start working with New Balance, they could do this approach, but it seems like New Balance is pretty much the same thing as Nike, Adidas, or Puma. They have these templates that just adapt it to each club, and then okay, now you do the storytelling you want to do about this. You don't get, for example, in Portugal at this moment, for me, the best club working the jerseys is Estoril Praia. They are doing amazing jerseys. The one that they did with Ayrton Senna, they always try to bring back things that are connected with the club and with the city. But they do that because Kappa allows them to do it. If they were Nike or Adidas, they have zero chance of doing a jersey like that.
It's interesting. Kappa have put out a lot of really good kits recently, but it's good to hear that for a person who is in position as president of a football club that you're keeping heritage close in mind. It sounds like it's something that's quite important to you and your vision for the club, which is great to hear. Well, just before we wrap things up, Rui, what are the plans for the pre-season and the beginning of the season for the club? We're not far off it now. Things must be quite hectic.
We are a little bit on hold right now, which is something that I really didn't want to be living at this moment because of this process of changing to an investor, to a PLC or not. This is putting us a little bit on hold because if you get to become a PLC, you get to hire one great left back. But if you don't get the PLC, you have to go with Jonee. And
I'm going to take offense to that.
So no one wants that.
So of course, this is a busy time for us, like agents presenting players, everything to organize for this new season. Unfortunately, we are a little bit here on hold. I hope to solve this issue once for all this week. Let's see if it's possible. The goal for next season is to avoid getting nights without sleeping like we did this season, because we were very, very close to be relegated, and my wish for this season is that we avoid relegation, and then we will see what we can get.
I think that's entirely fair. And yeah, I mean, this has been a great insight, Rui. As I said at the beginning of the show, thank you very much for spending your time to come on and chat with us. And special thanks to Jonee again for arranging this to happen. It's been the first time we've ever spoken with the president of a football club about heritage. And I think the fact that you're a supporter makes it all the better because you know the club inside and out. So I can't thank you enough for coming on, Rui. And we wish you all the best of luck for the season moving forward. Is there anything you want to add just before we finish up for today?
I just want to, first of all, thank you and Jonee for the opportunity to speak about my club and tell everybody that is listening to us and never had the idea of Clube Paços to visit our social media, to follow and get a plane to Porto. It's a 20-minute drive from the airport to our stadium. Come watch a game. Good food and the beer is at the right temperature.
That's all that Jonee cares about. It's good insight. That's brilliant. I'd urge any of our listeners, if you're over in Porto, to make the trip out and try and catch a game, or even to just go and see the ground, see a little bit about the club while you're out there. Thank you guys very much for coming on once again, and thank you very much to all of our listeners who tuned in. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions about this podcast, or if you want to suggest a topic, you can DM us on X. That's @_footyheritage, or you can email us at hello@footballheritage.co.uk as well. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a review. It does wonders for us in terms of the algorithm and pushing us in front of new listeners. That would be absolutely amazing if you could do so. But for now, Jonee, say goodbye.
See you guys.
Rui, say goodbye.
Bye.
And it's goodbye from me as well. We'll see you all again next week. Goodbye.